Sorry, revolvers suck. Okay, so today we just got done with day 2 of the Range Master Instructor Firearms Development course. Did I say Master Firearms Instructor Development course?
Yes.
Okay, and one of the big things that happened was we did a whole lot of revolver work today, and I will say I don't have a lot of experience with revolvers, so this is probably the most rounds I put down range with revolvers, probably the most, definitely the most training I've ever had with revolvers, and I definitely do think revolvers suck, but I also think they're awesome and they're cool, so we can kind of explain that a little bit.
Yeah, they make it feel like a cowboy.
Grab the revolver. Like,
let's talk about, I mean, we just need to differentiate that there's a lot of myths out there that say revolvers are better defensive guns. They're better for concealed carry, and it's just not true. With this day and age and the technology and the modern semi-automatic handgun, it's just not even close. With that being said, they're super cool, and they have a few pros, just not many.
Yeah, exactly. From the context of like choosing a defensive weapon, like revolvers they suck. But they are super awesome. Like this thing, when you pick it up, it doesn't feel like a semi-auto pistol. It's like heavy, you know, it's just like you feel like a cowboy when you're like holding
it. Feels
this.
Cool.
Yeah, you strap it to your hip and it's like, I'm the law, you know what I mean? Like immediately, that's what you feel. And I mean, the trigger's nice. Like it's got a nice trigger, especially like if you thumb cock it, which, you know, you're not really going to be doing defensive context type deal. But I mean, it's super cool. You can spin the cylinder and all that. They're really, really cool guns, and this was really fun to shoot. And one thing we were talking about a little bit before we got on camera was I felt running this, like doing all the reloading and stuff, that it was as much fun as like running a pump shotgun. Like with a pump shotgun, you're constantly, you know, you fire, you reload, right? You shoot 2, you reload 2. It's about the same thing with a revolver, because pretty much as soon as you start shooting, you have to reload the revolver. So that's one of the downsides, but we can kind of go into that. So let's talk about advantages first then. So what were the kind of the big ones that they hit in? Like, I thought it was pretty interesting how there's a few advantages, but not that many. You want me to go? All right. So first of all, like sitting on the table like this is an advantage, right? Like this gun's unloaded and you can see into the cylinders, and there's no possible way that there could still be a round in the chamber. So when people are first getting started with firearms, right, that's a common mistake. You pop out the magazine, oh, the gun's unloaded. They don't realize that there's a bullet in the chamber that they can't see, right? So that is an advantage. Very easy to see if revolver's unloaded. If unused, this was really interesting. If unused, revolvers will store forever, right? So like if you're gonna buy a revolver and never shoot it, and you're just gonna stick it in like a sock drawer, was the example given, right? Like as long as it has proper synthetic lubrication, like 10 years later, you can pick it up and shoot it.
The reason for that is because there's no spring tension when a revolver is, a double action revolver is just sitting. There's actually no spring tension on the gun. So, you know, 10 years down the road, as long as the oil hasn't seized up, that's why you use synthetic, is so the oil doesn't like turn to glue. But yeah, you can pull it out of the old sock drawer and it's gonna work no matter what.
And the opposite's actually true if you shoot it a lot.
Yeah, if you shoot it,
we're getting to it.
Very
true. But if you're not going to use the gun, then yeah, it is like one of those things that you can stick in a drawer and never use, and it should work.
Yes.
The other one I thought was really interesting was the ammo that'll fit. You know, you're pretty much unlimited in that. So like certain types of bullets don't feed well in semi-autos, like hollow points, or you know, there can be finicky with certain guns, and then power levels too, like because semi-autos need a certain amount of power to be able to reciprocate the slide. You know, they can be a little more finicky if a bullet it doesn't have enough power, but with like a revolver, you know, if it fits in there, it's basically going to shoot, and you don't have to worry about that. So it could be very low power, which is one of the disadvantages that we'll get to.
Yeah.
They're actually very low power, which I didn't know about. But and I think the other big advantage that Tom was talking about was the stocks, the grips, right? Because there's no magazine that goes in there. They're like infinitely adjustable to the shooter's hand, so you can change out all different types of stocks, and there's tons of custom makers, and you can do really wild things with stocks. So that's pretty neat too. And then that was pretty much it that he listed for the advantages. I can think of one more, which we didn't really talk about too much, but like contact distance shots, right? So like with a revolver, because if you press the semi-auto barrel directly up against somebody and you're taking a contact shot, you can push it out of battery and the gun won't fire, right? But with a snubby or a any type of revolver, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah,
so you can make a contact distance shot.
Unless you are actually up on the cylinder and you stop the cylinder from rotating.
Yeah.
Like if you're really up close.
Yeah. So it's not like it eliminates all the problems from a hands-on fight, but it is one of the few use cases or things that could happen. I know Greg Ellifritz has talked about like you can fire it from inside like a coat pocket or something, like if you have an outer coat pocket that you're carrying a revolver in, and then you don't have the slide can reciprocate, because there's no slide to reciprocate, you can fire it from inside clothing, that's another use case. But after that,
let's talk about the disadvantages.
Revolvers suck.
Yeah, so
Very funny.
first of all, let's talk about ammo, right?
Yeah.
Like most people when they do concealed carry a revolver, it's going to be a 38 special, and for a lot of people think this is a long cartridge. Compare it to a 9mm. This thing must blow the 9mm out of the water. It is so weak comparatively. If you just want to talk about pressures of what they're actually pushing out, the SAMI spec for a 38 special is around it's 15 to 17,000 psi, which comparatively to a 9mm is like 34 to 37,000 psi. So it's literally double the amount of pressure. Feet per second wise, it's slow comparatively. You're in the 750 to 800 range is what they advertise with 38 special, whereas you're 1,200 feet per second with the right 9mm load. So it's definitely a lot more anemic.
And that's because of the chamber design, right? I didn't realize that either. Semi-auto pistols, right? When you take apart a Glock or whatever it is, you got the barrel, but then the chamber is super thick. It's this blocky piece of steel or material that's so much material there. But there's not that much material between any of these chamber walls, and I didn't realize that was a huge technological basically roadblock for these. So you can't fire full power ammunition out of it.
Yeah, especially that one in specific is a 357. So the chamber walls are bigger on that one, but yeah, on a 38 specific cylinder, you're really thin on those walls.
Well, even the 357, that's what we were talking about too. The modern 9mm plus P is pushing out the same speeds as a 357 Magnum.
Ish, yeah, pretty close. Yeah,
it's pretty wild that that's the case. I didn't think that. You see that long case, I thought they were just God's bullet,
Yeah.
But so, and then with that ammo, not only is it lackluster, but there's only 6 to maybe there's some super, super small caliber ones that have 11 rounds, he was saying?
Yeah.
I've never seen an 11 round pistol, but I mean, this one has 7.
Yeah,
Standard's 6, right? And then you got the snub nose, a lot of 5-round ones, but
you can get 8.
Either way you look at it, it's so little ammo for the size of these things and the weight, and it's just low capacity, and that's just not what you want. Especially running drills, running defensive type drills, most of the time one shot does not get the job done. So you're going to put 2, you're going to put 3, you're going to keep shooting until you get the job done, right? But it's you run two drills of 3 rounds and you got to reload. You're constantly reloading this thing. It very much, like I said, it was super fun, and this is a super awesome gun, but it felt just like running a pump action shotgun. You shoot 2, you got to reload 2. You shoot 3, you got to reload 3. You got to constantly
be. But you're also
not
using a shotgun, which is
exactly. But
you're actually probably going to need a lot of rounds shooting.
Yeah, exactly.
38.
Exactly. So the limited ammo capacity is a huge deal,
and it just takes so much longer to reload a revolver compared to a semi-auto.
Yeah, so you're popping it open, you're flipping it up, you're ejecting the rounds, right? And then you're coming back, and then you got to drop them in, and then all the different gadgets, you don't want to drop one in at a time, right? That would take forever. So there's different gadgets, the speed reloaders, you got speed strips, and they all, have the pros and cons or whatever, but they're kind of cumbersome to carry. It's not like carrying an extra magazine. It's just, it's a nightmare.
And speed reloaders are also plastic, so they're also going to break if you drop them too hard. Today in class, I actually had one of my speed loaders. One of the chambers where one of the bullets go into actually broke, so when I was trying to load them, I would not get that last round, so I would have 6 instead of 7. So it's also that point of, if you miss anything or if you mess anything up with either your reload or your equipment mess up, you're already down another round compared to your already limited capacity.
And then we get to trigger, right? So if you're not thumb cocking it like a cowboy movie, right? You're gonna pull the gun out and you're gonna shoot it as fast as you can, like if it's a defensive type scenario. So the double action trigger pull is going to be much weightier than traditional semi-automatic trigger pulls, whether that's striker fired or double action, single action. The first trigger pull is double action, right? So it's a little heavier, but generally, I think it was 6 to 12 times the weight of the gun is going to be, whether, depending on whether it's like an airframe or it's going to be one of these, mid-size or full-size revolvers. But either way, like, the trigger pull is going to be significantly multiples of the weight of the gun. So that just makes it harder to shoot the gun more accurately when the trigger pull is, it takes more pounds of pressure to pull the trigger than it does that the gun weighs. That's going to make it harder to shoot accurately, but I mean, other than that, though, I thought the triggers were nice. Like, you just roll through it.
Yeah. Those are also, so we were running the 686 plus, and those are pretty heavy. When you start going into the like really small, lightweight guns, like the Smith & Wesson J-frame, like the airweights and some of the Ruger LCRs and stuff like that, you're going so light on that frame, and that trigger press is just so heavy. It's really, really hard to be accurate with them. And not only that, like if you're running 357 and some of those, obviously you're not on the air weights and stuff, but on those lighter guns running 357 mag, like defense loads, it sucks. They really suck to shoot. That's the other thing too. We felt recoil. It's interesting because with these big guns, it doesn't feel like it, but you're actually driving a lot of force into your body because there's no recoil springs to absorb any of that energy. So it's going straight into your hands. It sucks to shoot those for a long time. Your hands get really tired. So that's another thing to consider if you're like going out for a training day or something. Like shooting a lot of rounds in that sucks.
Yeah.
And cost of ammo. Like
yeah.
The 38 special is about right. I mean, right now we ended up spending like $450 for 1,000 rounds, and so you're getting a weaker round.
Yeah. And it's not NATO, so there's not like bajillion rounds, and 9mm NATO you can find everywhere, and it's
9mm. We're getting it for $230 a box right now, or a case right now. So
the sights too. These sights are actually pretty good, and it looks like they're replaceable or whatever, and they're adjustable. But not a lot of revolvers are like that, especially once you start going down to the ones that most people would, get. You go to a gun store, and the classic like story is like a female's like, "Hey, I want to carry a gun," and the guy hands her like a J-frame like revolver, super small, basically nothing for sights, just like a little nub on the top, not adjustable, so you're kind of like they just leave a lot to be desired either way. Even with these, I mean, these are fine, but like it's not like I could go and find like 5 different manufacturers like Glock sights, or Walther makes the same footprint, because there's so many different manufacturers that make Glock sights, so there's a plethora of like aftermarket for that type of thing, which I'm sure there's an aftermarket for this too, but not as cheap or as plentiful, you know what I mean?
The other thing that I thought was really interesting about revolvers is, going back to what he's saying about no recoil spring, it's like, these are like some of the most complicated guns that like exist. There's like 7 springs in just this tiny little area right here, and if any of those go out, or if any of them are slightly like not tuned up, the entire gun's really just thrown out of time, and it almost makes it just a baton at that point.
Yeah, that brings us to the biggest downside. No question, the biggest downside is reliability, which is hilarious.
Is not more reliable
because people, the gun shop people will always say, well, you're a woman, let's get you a 5-shot revolver. It's gonna be everything you're not gonna even need to train with this thing. That is garbage. So
it goes bang every time. 6 for sure.
We only shot 200 rounds through this course this morning, which it was over about an hour and a half or so, and
5 of them.
5 revolvers out of 20
21.
went down, locked up completely. Not like had malfunctions, like locked up completely unusable.
That's because that's the difference between revolver malfunctions and, so with the exception of like a failure to fire, which you can just pull the trigger again and it goes to the next cylinder. So okay, revolvers have that, one immediate action advantage over semi-autos,
Yeah.
right? But otherwise, there's no immediate action for revolvers, right?
And they don't double feed.
Yeah, they don't double feed, right? So there's no immediate action for these. Like when they go down, and like you need a tool bench. You need tools to like fix these. You know, the ones we saw today, like what was it? The gravity pulled the bullet out of the front, so the cylinder wouldn't turn and it wouldn't come out. So you come pull the cylinder out. Your partner, what happened with his?
Yeah, he had like tiny imperfections in the ammo, and because of that, it wasn't the gun like locked up on him. He couldn't shoot it anymore. Yeah, the one where the bullet actually separated. So it basically, with the inertia of it the bullet separated out. So there was part of the bullet that was outside of the cylinder. And so it wouldn't rotate. So the gun, like, you had to use a rod to push it out. Like, the gun's not, you're not getting it back in the fight, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, that's like, you've heard of the New York reload, or like, maybe, I don't know if you've heard of it, but like that's like a thing. Is like Tom made a pretty big point about it. Like the people that carried these seriously for doing serious work, like police work and all that stuff, back in the day, they would carry multiple revolvers because these problems are well known. And there's not like any documented cases of someone like in a fight being able to reload one of these and like continue the fight, you know. It just doesn't happen. It takes a long time, and you know, if something goes wrong, if there's a malfunction, it's usually kind of catastrophic. It's not like you know, with most semi-auto handguns, I mean, a tap rack fixes everything. Like, it's got to be, there's not a lot that won't fix, right? And in a class, like you regularly have, you know, 20 people in a class, and you just don't see guns go down like that, you know?
No.
Yeah, so anyways, so to sum all that up, revolvers aren't as great as most people think. I would definitely say they're awesome, but they also suck, especially if you're kind of like not an enthusiast and you're not going to go through all the things that you need to go through to keep these things running and use them effectively. So the biggest thing is capacity. Well, as far as like, if you're going to do these, the biggest thing, like, I guess the biggest advice that Tom had was like, you know, maintenance and like preventative care are like the most important things to keep these things running. You should be checking every one of these screws on the face plates. This one's, the stocks are covering it, but what's
the
this one
ejector
called?
rod.
The tension screw, or the something like that. Yeah, the ejector rod. This can come loose. Like, just constantly keeping an eye on things and maintaining it, keeping it clean is another thing. Like, you pretty much don't have to clean modern semi-auto handguns like ever. You can just throw some lube in there and then maybe, like, you know, whatever. But like these, you should actually clean. And
not just like add a little bit of oil and just like rub off the chamber. Like what Tom was saying, like that ejector star there, you get even the tiniest amount of anything in between that and the chamber, it locks up the whole gun. Yeah. It's actually like you have to take it apart and actually clean it and be very meticulous with it, because otherwise any little thing will just keep it from running.
Yeah, when Tom was working in the police force, they brought a toothbrush and a ramrod, you know, to every like police qualification. You know, the few times a year they had to do that because that's what you do to keep it clean and keep the gun running.
As he would say, some call that a sign.
Yeah, some call that a clue in police work. You know? So yeah. So to sum it up, this was super fun. These are super awesome guns. Like,
yeah, super fun to play with.
Super fun. Like running it, like I said, was like a pump action shotgun. You're constantly doing something. It's neat to do it, and it's definitely good to have that knowledge base. And this thing feels awesome to just hold. Like it's got so much weight to it. You strap it on your hip, you feel like a lawman. But yeah, they basically suck, revolvers. It'd be much better to go with like a semi-auto.
Good defensive semi-auto
yeah,
pistol.
And even if you're trying to go really small, like the J-frames today, like, I mean, the P365, like SIGs, they're the same size as a J-frame, but you're getting 12, 13, 15 rounds. I mean,
you can change the mags in very fast.
Yeah, that you can reload very quickly. It shoots a better round, 9mm.
Very reliable.
Just super reliable. Yeah, so pretty much obsolete, but awesome guns, and it was a great time getting to shoot these. So that's what we think. Go ahead and tell us how much you hate us in the comments.